Most backyard gardens fail within 6 months because people plant seedlings, not systems. They buy pretty transplants from the nursery, arrange them in neat rows, water them faithfully, and watch them struggle and die one by one. The problem is not their effort or their intentions. The problem is that they are working against nature instead of with it. If you do not follow the 3 steps I am about to share, you are essentially throwing money in the trash. But if you follow them correctly, you will never need to set foot in a grocery store produce section again. This is the food forest system, and it will feed you for years without the endless work that burns out most gardeners. The common garden fails for reasons most people never understand. They blame their soil, their climate, their lack of experience, or simply bad luck. But the real issue is structural. Annual vegetable gardens are designed to die. Every plant in them completes its life cycle in a single season, and then it is gone. You harvest, and then you have nothing. The soil sits bare over winter, losing nutrients and structure. Come spring, you start from zero, rebuilding what weather and time destroyed. This cycle exhausts gardeners and depletes the land in equal measure. No wonder most people quit within the first year or two. The food forest operates on completely different principles. Instead of fighting the natural tendency of land to become forest, you accelerate that process using plants that feed you. A forest does not need annual replanting. Nobody fertilizes the woods or weeds between the trees. The system sustains itself through relationships between layers of vegetation, each one supporting the others. When you design your garden as a food forest, you tap into these same self-sustaining dynamics. The result is abundance that increases over time rather than depleting with each harvest. Step 2 is what separates serious food producers from hopeful amateurs. But before I show you that step, you need to understand why your land is dying silently beneath your feet. Most people have soil that is biologically dead. It looks like dirt because it is dirt. Living soil teems with billions of organisms in every handful. Bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes, and countless other creatures form a web of life that processes nutrients and makes them available to plants. Without this biology, your plants are essentially growing in a sterile medium that cannot support vigorous growth, no matter how much fertilizer you add. The death of soil biology happens gradually through practices that seem harmless or even beneficial. Tilling destroys fungal networks that take years to establish. Synthetic fertilizers kill the organisms that would otherwise feed your plants naturally. Bare soil exposed to sun and rain loses organic matter and compacts into hardpan that roots cannot penetrate. Pesticides eliminate the insects and microbes that maintain ecosystem balance. Year after year, these assaults accumulate until your garden soil becomes incapable of supporting healthy plant life without constant intervention. Reversing this damage is the hidden foundation that makes everything else possible. You cannot build a productive food forest on dead soil any more than you can build a house on quicksand. The 3-step system I teach addresses this problem directly, but most people skip it because they cannot see biology. They focus on the plants above ground while ignoring the ecosystem below. This is why their gardens fail, and why food forests built on living soil thrive for generations. The first step in creating your food forest is establishing the canopy layer with fruit and nut trees. These are the anchors of your system and the longest-term investment you will make. The trees you plant today will still be producing food for your grandchildren if you choose the right species and give them proper placement. Apples, pears, plums, and cherries work beautifully in temperate climates. Peaches and apricots add variety where summers are warm enough. Nut trees, like walnuts, chestnuts, and hazelnuts, provide protein and calories that fruit cannot match. The canopy layer does far more than produce fruit and nuts. These trees create the conditions that make everything else possible. Their leaves shade the ground, reducing moisture loss and moderating temperature extremes. Their roots reach deep into subsoil mining minerals that shallow-rooted plants cannot access. When leaves fall, they deposit these nutrients on the surface where other plants can use them. The canopy trees are pumps that move fertility from deep underground to the surface layer where your food grows. Spacing your canopy trees correctly prevents problems that become unfixable later. Research the mature spread of each variety and resist the temptation to crowd them together. Young trees look lonely with so much space between them, but that space will fill with productive understory plants while the canopy develops. Trees planted too close compete for light and resources, producing less fruit and requiring constant pruning to maintain access. Give them room now, and they will reward you with decades of easy harvests. The second step is filling the understory layer with berry bushes and small fruiting plants. This is where most people fail because they do not understand the critical timing involved. The understory must be established while your canopy trees are still young and letting light through. If you wait until the canopy closes, the ground becomes too shaded for understory plants to establish properly. But if you plant the understory at the same time as your canopy trees, both layers grow together and adapt to each other over time. Blueberries are among the most valuable understory plants for food forests. They produce abundant fruit, tolerate partial shade as the canopy develops, and live for decades with minimal care. Raspberries and blackberries spread to fill available space and begin producing within a year of planting. Currants and gooseberries thrive in conditions that would stress other fruit plants. Elderberries provide both food and medicine while attracting beneficial insects. The diversity of your understory layer determines how much food you harvest while waiting for canopy trees to mature. The understory also includes smaller fruit trees that naturally stay compact. Dwarf apple and pear varieties fit beneath standard-sized trees and produce full-sized fruit. Pawpaws tolerate deep shade and offer tropical-flavored fruit in temperate climates. Mulberries grow quickly and produce berries that birds and humans both love. These small trees add vertical diversity to your food forest, filling the space between tall canopy trees and low-growing shrubs. The third step is covering the ground layer with perennial vegetables, herbs, and soil-building plants. This layer is the most overlooked and the most important for long-term success. The ground layer protects soil from erosion and compaction. It suppresses weeds that would otherwise compete with your productive plants. It builds fertility through nitrogen fixation and organic matter accumulation. And it produces food at a level that requires no bending or climbing to harvest. Perennial vegetables anchor the ground layer with reliable production year after year. Asparagus sends up spears every spring for 2 decades from a single planting. Rhubarb produces stalks so abundantly that most gardeners give away their surplus. Walking onions multiply themselves, providing alliums without replanting. Sorrel offers tangy greens from earliest spring until hard frost. These plants establish once and then keep giving forever, which is exactly what a food forest needs. Herbs spread through the ground layer, adding culinary and medicinal value to every corner of your food forest. Mint colonizes moist, shady areas that would otherwise grow only weeds. Oregano and thyme form dense mats that crowd out competition while providing kitchen staples. Chives multiply into clumps that offer mild onion flavor most of the year. These plants fill gaps that would otherwise become maintenance problems, and they do it while producing harvests that store easily dried or frozen. Nitrogen-fixing plants are the secret engine that powers the entire food forest system. Clover spreads between other plants, converting atmospheric nitrogen into forms that roots can absorb. This free fertility feeds your fruit trees, berry bushes, and vegetables without any purchased inputs. Groundnut produces edible tubers while enriching the soil below. Autumn olive fixes nitrogen while providing abundant berries. These plants eliminate the need for fertilizer, which means less work and less expense forever. Ground covers complete the system by ensuring no soil remains bare and vulnerable. Strawberries carpet open areas while producing fruit that delights both children and adults. Creeping thyme tolerates light foot traffic and releases fragrance when walked upon. Violets spread in shade and offer edible flowers for spring salads. These plants protect your soil from rain impact and sun exposure while requiring nothing from you except occasional harvest. The 3 layers work together in ways that multiply their individual benefits. Canopy trees create shade that understory plants need to thrive. Understory plants produce organic matter that feeds the ground layer. Ground layer plants protect soil and fix nitrogen that feeds all the layers above. Each element supports the others, creating a system far more productive and resilient than any single layer could be alone. Maintenance in a mature food forest approaches zero because the system handles its own needs. Weeds cannot establish through the dense ground cover layer. Water needs decrease as organic matter accumulates and improves soil structure. Fertility builds naturally through leaf fall and nitrogen fixation. Pests and diseases remain controlled through the diversity that prevents any single problem from spreading. You transition from worker to harvester, simply walking through and collecting what is ripe. The timeline for food forest development tests patience but rewards it generously. In year 1, your planting looks sparse and unconvincing. By year 3, understory plants begin producing and ground covers start spreading. By year 5, canopy trees yield their first real harvests. By year 10, you have a mature system that produces hundreds of pounds of food annually with almost no work required. This progression continues as the system matures, becoming more productive and more self-sufficient with every passing season. Start your food forest this season with whatever space you have available. Even a small corner can support one fruit tree, several berry bushes, and a carpet of perennial herbs and vegetables. The 3 steps remain the same regardless of scale. Establish your canopy, plant your understory, and cover your ground. Then let time and natural processes transform your simple planting into the abundant food forest your family deserves.